Dear friends and colleagues, on behalf of A4, I would like to kindly welcome you to our online seminar, The Role of Culture Centers as Sites of Informal Education. I am delighted to host this seminar, a virtual seminar from A4 Contemporary Culture Center, located in Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia. We are very pleased to be able to host you to participate in this seminar, although we have to shift it from a physical event to an online one. My name is Nadia Uherová and I am an acting coach, theatre director and dramaturg, and I will be here to facilitate the seminar for the next 2 days. First of all, I would like to say a special thanks to our partners. This seminar is a spouting project that we will hear more about in the first presentation. It is co-founded by Erasmus Plus program, Arts Council. Other partners that supported us are PDCS, sli.do, zdronu, Evergreen Garden and Totem. Now, without any further delay, first I will give you an overview of our 2 days program and provide you with some technical information. Then I would share with you a few of my ideas. So, today we offer you a video tour of Cultural Center A4. After that, all the participants can meet each other in breakout session. Later in the afternoon, we will be hearing from three speakers. Following their introduction, there will be an opportunity for a discussion with them in a breakout session. In the evening, we invite you to join us for a live stream concert. Tomorrow, we shall resume our program at 9:45 with a virtual guided tour of city Bratislava. Later in the morning, we will listen to the keynote speaker François Matarasso. This will be followed by 5 thorough case studies, lunch and a World Cafe style discussion. We also have a beautiful short Slovak movie available for you to watch after the lunch break. Sounds great, we have a lot to go through. Now let me give you a few technical information. We are going to use a Zoom platform. First of all, I would like to kindly ask you to use your full name as a Zoom name or your institution name. So, if you are using a nickname, we would prefer you would change it to your full name. Thank you. And just so you know, all participants would be initially muted. The chat in a Zoom is disabled. If you have any questions for the speakers, please submit them in a Slido. If you have any technical problems, please use the chat box on A4 website to contact our technical support team. All speeches and presentations will be live streamed on YouTube, Facebook and A4 website. Also, they will be available after the seminar on A4 TV on YouTube. You can share it with your colleagues and friends. They can also ask questions and submit them in a Slido. Discussions and breakout rooms are available just for internal participants in Zoom. We will not stream this part on YouTube. Don't worry if you have missed any of this information. I will remind you the important ones at the right time. And now let me start by saying a few words about the program of this seminar. Before I start, I want to clarify the word dramaturg and dramaturgy. In Slovakia, we also use this word dramaturgy when we are talking about creating programs. We use it in theaters and also in cultural centers. In foreign cultural centers, people usually call this profession as creative programmer or creative manager. In my presentation, I will use word dramaturgy and dramaturg because the same principles apply. From my point of view, dramaturgy includes a process of analysis and selection. My collaboration with Culture Center A4 in Bratislava started in autumn 2020 when I was invited by Executive Director Nina de Gelder to become a consultant for this project, and I remain very grateful for this opportunity. Following our discussion, I started research into informal education in cultural centers. My background as a lecturer and in acting gave me some directions and inspiration. Now, I would like to share with you some of the questions and thoughts which form the basis of this seminar. I have been sitting in front of my computer for hours, browsing the websites of cultural centers, and look through the websites of all 127 cultural centers that are also members of Trans-Europe Hall. I have seen photos, viewed the maps of cities and people involved with the centers. I have carefully reviewed the programs of each center delivered before the pandemic as well as during the pandemic. I have seen a lot of great work which you have done. I know that every culture center is competing for funding. The executive director often undertakes roles such as a doorman, graphic designer, manager, and creative program director, or dramaturg. Sometimes he or she even takes the bin out when necessary. I am aware many of you have to juggle all of these roles. Some culture centers are fortunate to have highly qualified dramaturgs, while other centers will fill these positions with active artists or very talented managers. The situation varies from center to center. I would like us to explore several dramaturgical questions on which I have been pondering. Question number 1. What is informal education in culture center? When I was undertaking my research, I asked myself, what does informal education really mean? For me, informal education implies activities which are different from formal education at school or academic institution. Culture centers do not duplicate formal education. In my opinion, every activity in culture center can be regarded as informal education. Whether it is theatrical performance, exhibition, or concert, and so on. Now, let's take a closer look at the different activities that are offered in our culture centers and ask ourselves, can these also be considered informal education? Workshops. Workshops are the most common activities associated with informal education. Short workshops focus on dance, theatrical, or fine arts lessons, especially for young people before the age of 30. Not so common are specialist education events for small groups. Good example would be series of workshops for professional light designers held by Culture Center, for example, Stanica Žilina a few years ago in Slovakia. The time frame for a long-term plan is usually 1 year or longer, as funding is normally provided for 1 year. Application would be resubmitted every year. 1 year is generally not long enough for a significant student's development. Few years ago, I was working in a cultural center with children's theater group, DDS Kamarát, in town named Martin in Slovakia. We had an 8-hour workshop once a month. In addition to that, children had their regular rehearsals with their drama teacher on a weekly basis. After 6 months, I saw some progress in their acting skills. After 1 year, I saw greater improvement in their acting, speech, and movement. Also, the children became more motivated to continue. We were fortunate enough to be able to carry out the series of theatrical workshops for 6 consecutive years. Over this period of time, the children became really good actors. They prepared many performances and took part in a number of theater festivals. I had a similar experience with another long-term project, this time a series of workshops for Roma children. I have been able to run these workshops for 10 years. As an example, I can say a student of mine is now a professional actress, and she had played a main role in Slovak movie Loli Paradička. Another example with education for adults. I have been studying in a World Theatre Training Institute and for theatre practitioners in Berlin with Juri Alšic for more than 10 years. And I remember my first time in Summer Academy with Yuri in Italy, when we celebrate Michael Chekhov anniversary, that it opened my mind, and I have started to be addicted in long-term education activities. In my experience, long-term workshops, especially for children education activities, give better results. Other types of well-liked activities are lectures and discussions, where topics usually include science, traveling, and social themes. Nevertheless, they are not as popular as practical workshops. In compared to other events and activities, demand for literary events is low. I have seen events like book reading and meeting the authors or a book lunch. There are just a few events which involve storytelling. However, I think there is a potential here. There are specific events I have seen in some cultural centers. These activities are targeted for senior audience and community groups. A phenomenon that is growing in popularity in Slovakia is organizing competitions in knowledge quizzes. And again, ask ourselves, what does informal education really mean? And now, question number 2. What percentage of programs do Cultural Center dedicate to informal education activities? If I were a dramaturg or creative programmer of Cultural Center, I would define the percentage of all programs and activities that was dedicated to informal education. I would have, as often as possible, loved to invite lecturers from all over the world. An ideal situation, isn't it? Often activities are incorporated into the program intuitively, depending on actual situation and the offers the center receives. I am very well aware of situations where ad hoc emails are received from artistic groups saying, "Hello, how are you? We are currently on tour and we would like to use your place for our performance and also to carry out workshops. What do you think?" And you think to yourself, okay, we have free, better than nothing. Another example are regular and targeted education activities. To prepare regular and targeted activities, you should know your audience and your city. Ask yourself, can you spend 10% on the platform in informal education in your monthly program or more? Question number 3. Where is your cultural center situated? It is located in urban or rural area. Is your cultural center situated in the city, a small town, or maybe in the village? This is an essential question we have been addressing as lecturers in practical dramaturgy of performing arts. Dramaturg should conduct research the demographic, social and economic milieu of cultural center he or she manages. For instance, does the city have a diverse community of students and people with above average level of education? Or are you running a center in a middle-class town? Is there a professional theater environment? What kind of schools, academies or universities reside in the city? What are the main type of industry and sources of income? It is a popular tourist destination and it is a home to other cultural institutions. Question number 4. Who is your audience? Do we know them? Do you know your targeted audience? What are the main age groups within your audience? According to my research, spectators attending events and at cultural centers are generally between the age of 18 and 30. Other groups may consist of parents with children, mainly interested in weekends activities, or single people around the age of 40. Senior citizens make up the smallest category. I came across only one culture center offering informal education activities for seniors. It was a project called University of Third Age. It may be a good idea to ask the question why the majority of culture centers do not engage this age category. Lastly, I would like to mention the phenomenon of communities which are being formed around the culture centers. These communities represent the soul of the centers. What community form the soul of your center? And question number 5. What are the challenges in your dramaturgies? We picked up several cultural centers that we think are good in what they do, and we would like to show you their strategy in following case studies. These positive results represent in fact the basis of this seminar. It's something unique and special, and by which I personally have been touched and inspired. Together with the team at A4, we have selected the best examples as case studies. Now let's explore these case studies. I would like to share my thoughts and reflections that led to the themes selected for this seminar. Whilst conducting my research, I came across interesting repertoire of activities comprised the programs. In my opinion, dramaturgy is a continuous process of analysis and selection. One has to repeatedly ask questions. The answers are not always easy to find, and often the ideas have to be tested and evaluated. It's difficult to be 100% certain that a particular activity would suit the program and attract the audience. Sometimes a trial or error method has to be used. I am aware that dramaturgs are often overstretched, and they often work more instinctively than purposely. I remember this tool called 365 questions that we were given by our professor of dramaturgy for analyzing a dramatic text. It was a list of brilliant questions to ensure important things were not forgotten while analyzing a play. And to be honest, I would never thought of asking some of these questions. I can imagine it would be beneficial for both unexperienced as well as experienced dramaturgs of the cultural centers using a similar approach by asking themselves out loud, how does this activity fit into my program, why, and what it will bring or achieve. For the purpose of this seminar, I selected Slovak center Diera do sveta as a good example of carefully considered and targeted dramaturgy. The center is based in a small town, and in our report we decided to focus on the educational activities it carries out for its audience and community. It is a unique situation given the size and location of the town, which is located near to the Tatras in the heart of Slovakia. From the instant you observe their dramaturgy, you will notice that their activities are carefully and thoroughly planned. They understand their audience and have a clear idea of their approach for educating and developing them. This method can be challenging and therefore is not so commonly used. The activities stimulate the audience and force them to advance their thinking and therefore broaden their horizons. Despite of the size of the town, it is making an impact through their courage and determination to bring these activities to their audience. When designing our programs, it's important to incorporate activities that will attract audience and also make a profit for the center. Let us all be inspired by current business models in informal education, which has been proven to be successful. This is also a topic of research that has been undertaken by the members of TEH. Nevertheless, we are competent in our jobs and we know it is often more about human relationships and other values than money. My research has also shown that there are only few educational activities concerning literature. If I witnessed any events at all, there were usually book reading events, book lunches, discussions with the author, or creative writing workshops. We would like to bring to your attention a genre that combines both literature and drama. I am talking about storytelling. Perhaps you already know it as a brilliant method of informal education for children and young people. Through the story told by professional storyteller, we are able to get into the ambience of the literary work and we are struck. Storytelling is a great tool used to increase general knowledge of literature as well as verbal proficiency, imagination and creativity. We will hear more about this topic in the talk from Italian storyteller. I believe in your career you have already participated in projects and activities that felt more like a mission. Theater is a form of art that is a magical experience because it is a collaborative work. It unites us, teaches us to work together, regardless of our background and circumstances. It includes different types of art, from dramatic text, dramaturgy, directing, scenography and costume design to music and acting. The cooperation of all members in theater teaches us to be receptive and empathetic, especially if these values are instilled in us from an early age. The artists from the project Het Paleis will share their views on this matter. Nebojša Milikić will also present a case study called How to Share the Experience of Improbability and will talk about examples on how every work of art educates us in different ways. Continuous learning, being creative and talented development are inherent human qualities. Without art, we would be like empty shells. The pandemic has brought hard times for many of us. It is because of the pandemic we can now see each other only virtually, but it is important to realize that we continue to be creative and it's also our creativity that helps us to go forward in spite of these difficult times. But I am also aware that many of centers had to close. Yes, it's very challenging to keep paying the rent and the bills without audience. We all are well familiar with this situation. In the last year, the longest running culture center in Slovakia, Stanica Žilina, created and ran a project on the premises of the gallery Nova Synagoga. The team will later present the educational strategies they used whilst working on this project, as well as highlight new formats and little discoveries that arose as a result of pandemic restrictions. Dramaturgy and psychology of the audience are very much interlinked. Every dramaturgs want to satisfy and stimulate the development and creativity of the audience, including young people. But what are the true needs of 5 years old and 15 years old spectator? What kind of activities of informal education would satisfy a soul of young person? What does his or her inner self really need? Dramaturgy can learn on studies in psychology and be more considered and relevant to the audience. We will take a much closer look on this theme in the talk by Timotea Vrablova from Slovak Academy of Sciences. We also included in our program an interview with Sheila Kouklo and Hannah Olson, who will talk about the project Spotting. Sheila is a researcher involved with the Spotting project and she is helping to develop knowledge exchange between partner organizations in arts education. In her case study, she will reflect on the Spotting project design process and experience so far. Hannah Olson works at TEH, where she is a project manager and of International Resource Office, project manager and researcher for Project Spotting. Keynote speech on informal education in cultural activities will be led by François Matarasso. He is a freelance community artist, writer and researcher. Using a case study from an ongoing EU-funded research project, he will talk about the ways that participatory art can support informal education. Although it is too early to report progress, the focus of the talk will be on a novel framework being proposed to understand personal and social change. So, this was a long through process from many hours of consultations with Nina and Magdalena at ED4, who listened to my observations and news and shared my thought processes. Our intention by choosing these topics was to present a set of case studies that would enrich and inspire us going forward in the future. We had to choose the most unique centers from many great ones as examples, and it was difficult to eliminate the others. Also, I would like to mention that at the beginning we were considering other topics, such as cooperation with official educational institutions, specialist education in a culture center, and education activities for retired people. But in the end, we selected 8 themes, which will be presented over the next 2 days. So, to summarize, we will hear from 13 interesting speakers, presenting 9 case studies. I trust you will find this topic interesting and you are eager to get started. I appreciate that we all love the atmosphere of the seminars and festivals. However, despite the fact we can see each other only virtually, we have prepared exciting topics for discussions in our virtual breakout rooms within the limit of our technical capabilities. I hope you will enjoy this seminar, meet like-minded people, and delve deeply into the topics of the speakers. Enjoy! And now, I would like to invite and hand over to Executive Director of A4, Nina de Gelder. And Nina is working in A4 Space for Contemporary Culture Center since January 2020. Most of her professional life she worked as a project manager in the field of culture and international relations. Before the joining A4 team, she worked as a vice rector for international cooperation at the Academy of Fine Arts and Design in Bratislava. Nina, welcome. It's your turn.
Thank you very much, Nadia. Thank you. And I would also like to welcome you here in A4 in Bratislava. As Nadia mentioned, originally this seminar was planned as a live event here in the venues of A4. Unfortunately, the current situation does not allow us to meet in person, but let's see the bright side of it. The advantage of it being online is that we could invite 70 participants on Zoom and many more to follow on the stream. I'm very happy to be here with you today, and I believe we will learn a lot and share a lot, and I believe we will enjoy these 2 days together. And now I would like to introduce you to A4, Space for Contemporary Culture, and also the team of A4 that prepared the seminar for us. Once again, welcome and enjoy the video.
Now I would like to kindly introduce our two first speakers and their theme, which is Tech Spotting Project, and which will be presented by Sheila Kouklo in conversation with Hannah Olson. Sheila is a Belfast-based artist with a research-led practice grounded in her experience in arts education, facilitation and participation, presenting, publishing and exhibiting in UK and Europe. Sheila is a spotting project researcher helping develop arts education knowledge exchange and case studies with the Partners organization. Hannah Olson works at TEH, where she is a project manager of the International Resource Office and project manager and project researcher for Space of Transformation in Arts Education. So Sheila and Hannah, welcome. The space is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thanks everybody for being here virtually. We're delighted to kick off the afternoon of talks, and we're going to be chatting about the Spaces of Transformation or Spotting project. So the Spotting partners had our first Critical Friend feedback session this morning, and the next 2 days mark the first of 4 spotting seminars. So we're really glad to virtually have you with us, and of course thanks to the Spotting partner A4 for hosting us. So I'm just going to jump straight in and ask Hannah the first question. So to kind of establish a little bit of background to how the Spotting project came about, could you tell us a little bit about Trans-Europe-Pals and the Arts Education Hub?
Absolutely. So Trans-Europe-Pals is a network of grassroots cultural centers, European grassroots cultural centers. We were founded in 1983, and we currently have 126 members around 36 countries in Europe. So what we do is to connect, and we also have a lot of capacity building activities and different projects that we run or are part of. So in 2015, since many of our members are working with arts education activities in different forms, a group was formed to start thinking of ways to exchange knowledge, ideas, and methodologies. And later on, this was integrated in the project Factories of Imagination. That is the network grant that we received from the Creative Europe. So for the first 3 years of the platform, or the hub, as we now call it, this has been a part of the Factories of Imagination project. And now we have made it a separate project within the Erasmus+. So Sheila, how did you come to get involved in the Spotting project?
Well, I've been involved with the Beat Carnival for the last 20 years. Hard to believe, I know, but yes. And the Beat Carnival have been a member of Trans-Europe-Pals for the last 24 years. And they were part of the Arts Education Platform, or Hub, and kindly invited me to take part in that program. So I participated in the 3 seminars. The one in Gothenburg with Rhoda Stein, in Belfast, obviously hosted by the Beat Carnival. And last year we were in Luxembourg with Kulturfabrik. So as my PhD research is looking at theory and practice of participatory art, it was really through conversations with the arts education platform partners that kind of specific themes of interest arose, like kind of exploring values, ethics, agency, for example, and how they manifest in participatory practices. And that led to me going to present my practice-based research at Brunn Passage in Vienna and at KUFA in Luxembourg via talks and workshops. So it was suggested that I would be a good fit as a project researcher for spotting to develop the project design and the methodology so that would inform the case studies and the report. I suppose it might be a good question, Hannah, if we can delve into a little bit more about the partners' experiences of the Arts Education Hub and some of the ideas that led to the spotting project.
Yes, so previously we had some core activities within the platform or the hub. We had annual seminars that you mentioned. We were in Gothenburg the first year, and then we were in Belfast and had a seminar on the theme Imagine, Create and Critique. And then last year we were in Luxembourg, and the theme of that seminar was exploring the benefits of arts education programs. We have also organized the staff exchanges and workshops because twice a year we meet within the network. In the spring, summertime, we have a bigger meeting, and in the fall we have a smaller camp meeting. So within those meetings we have also organized workshops, but we came to a point somehow when we have been sharing a lot of good knowledge and ideas, and now we want to also go into action. So that was one reason for this project, and also another reason was that we found a hub underfinanced, so there was a lot of potential there, but we wanted some more money into the project. So that's why we were forming the Erasmus Plus project, and of course also for the continuation afterward, because this will enable us to work for 3 more years within the platform at least, which is very, very nice. So it was basically going into action. So each of the partners now, the core partners of the project, will make case studies based on their own needs, and also with some focus on how to involve new target groups in their arts education activities. So that's where we are at. And as you mentioned also, Sheila, we have critical friend pairs. So this morning we had a critical friend session. And so the partners will also get help from the peer learning experience. So I think you can tell us a little bit more, Sheila, about the research design of this project, to dive a little bit deeper into that.
Okay, yeah, so as you outlined, through the partners' experience in the Art Education Hub, there was a definite appetite to go beyond that process of kind of show and tell, getting together to present and share, have all these kind of stimulating thoughts and experiences, but really go back home without mechanisms, sort of time or support to really kind of put anything into practice. So the desire was always to try and develop work specifically as part of a process of peer knowledge exchange, as you mentioned, developing projects in tandem and testing different approaches as part of a kind of supported group learning and reflection. So in our spotting application project goals, I think it says something like that we're going to be stimulating professional development and knowledge transfer between arts education, practice and theory, which sounds great. And so what I did then to try and kind of catch that learning and that process of peer education was to look at comparable research projects and methodologies and timescales. And so then I proposed to the spotting partners that we use a methodology adapted from participatory action research. So sort of specifically, I was looking at how it's used in an education context, and really principally moving beyond the cycle of action and then reflecting on the action to trying to bring in the idea of key value or values to underpin a research question or a project, to move into a cycle of value, action and reflection. So for example, some of our partners as Centres of Art Education have identified a key principle of co-creation as the value that they want to underpin their research project. So that then becomes a criteria for them self-assessing and reflecting on their actions supported by their peers and their critical friends. So that would be kind of exploring what is meant by co-creation in their context, what and where are its limits, who decides what they are, what needs to be in place for co-creation to happen, how does co-creation affect how and what data is collected. So all of that really informs the project decisions and the understanding of what decisions and why those decisions are made. So we have a system of monthly reflective diaries that the partners fill in, and quarterly critical friend sessions to try and help support this process and to try and make it as formative and reflexive as possible over the 3-year period, with really trying to use simplified participatory action research principles broken down and grounded in kind of participatory and peer learning. So it's really trying to unite the action, i.e. what you do, and the research, how you learn about and explain what you do. So I think that probably is about all that we have time for if we're going to get to some questions. So unless you have anything to add, Hannah, I might throw over to Nadia to see if she can help us out with some questions, if anybody has any. So we can have a look in the whiteboard maybe, or you see any questions, or in Slido. No questions in there. I think while we're waiting for that to happen, yeah, it's kind of really interesting to see this seminar take shape. As Nina explained, it was going to be in person, but it's online and that pivot. But it represents the first of 4 seminars that really kind of, it was designed to support that form of like knowledge exchange in a wider context. So I think that will be really interesting, hearing from the other presenters and seeing what kind of work and action is going on in different centers.
We can also mention that the result of this will also be 8 different case studies based on the work and the test bed that all of these centers all the participating centers will conduct during these 3 years.
Yeah.
So they will be available when the time comes, not now, but in 3 years.
Yeah, it's been really interesting as a researcher to see people kind of think about not just the sort of practical logistics, but really see our partners use this as an opportunity to really reflect on what they do and why and how, and to really interrogate kind of, I suppose, mission statements or some of the kind of underpinning ideas about what drives them as organizations and as people. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that kind of gets translated into the projects.
Dear Sheila,
hey,
thank you for your beautiful presentation. I have received one question for you. So please, what are the next steps in your project in the TEH education and in education platform?
Yeah, I might throw that over to Hannah actually, as the logistics person.
Absolutely. So the next step, we will have a seminar report, of course, after this seminar, and we will also start to have interviews with Sheila. Will make interviews with all of the partners. So that's the very next step. We will also meet, hopefully, in Bratislava in the fall for the camp meeting. So fingers crossed for that. But those are the next steps, and of course also the implementation of the test beds are ongoing. The planning has started, and also in some cases some implementation. So that will go parallel with all these milestones that we have in the project.
Thank you very much for your answer and presentation. And now I would like to invite in front of us the next speakers. They are from Slovakia, from Center Diera do Sveta, which is located in Tatras. And the speakers will be Janka Hanzelová-Mikušová, which has studied theater studies and participated in several theater plays, and Robert Drebka, and they both are curators of Diera do Sveta. Diera do Sveta is a small center culture which was founded in 2014, and they have also a specialized bookshop in their culture center. I was there, I like it very much. Their speech will give an overview of educational and culture activities which are focused on topics of gender equality and feminism, ecology, science, as well as current social, political and economic crisis. So we are looking forward to your presentation and cross fingers, and
Thank you.
It's your turn, Janka and Robo.
Nice to meet you all. Okay, so we'll just share our presentation. Just a moment.
And please, if you have any questions for the speakers, submit them in a sli.do. I will ask them in the end of their presentation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I believe the presentation is on. So.
Okay, we can start. At the beginning of our presentation, just a few words about Diera do Sveta and its history. Diera do Sveta, as Naďka said, is a cultural center based in small city, Liptovský Mikuláš, in the north of Slovakia, and founded in 2014. In the beginning, we focused on the multi-genre program. Structure of the program was inspired by already existing cultural centers in Slovakia. We selected events mainly according to their artistic and intellectual quality. Informal education was from the beginning important part of our dramaturgy, though the selection of topics and hosts was more or less spontaneous and curated by our preferences.
And then afterwards, there came a transformation of the program. We realized that we are kind of stagnating in what we do, and we realized that we need to do something differently. We need not to reproduce the same old model of cultural production, and we need to define ourselves mostly in regard to the contemporary ongoing crisis we are all in. And from the from like the major part, it was the personal urgency. We felt that we need to do something more, and we have to respond to the crisis. So we decided to transform primarily the informal education, and we grasped it conceptually. So it was based on the preferences we had towards the politics, and we started our path towards socially and politically engaged art institution. We defined 5 key pillars of the ideal cultural center. First, it is a socially responsible art institution. Here we believe that the program must critically reflect on the ongoing contemporary crisis, and primarily it should explain these crises and do its best to removing its negative consequences or mitigating them. Then our institution in a specific context, that's the second point. We are a small institution in a small town with 30,000 inhabitants. It has like very little art infrastructure, and it has no university. And even though at the beginning we felt that we felt kind of like marginal and useless and so on, but then later we realized that it gives us better position towards our audience. We can understand each other deeper, and we can learn better from each other. Third, it is our institution with its own identity. We believe that institutions should reflect ideas and values that its members or its collective uphold or endorse. So we decided to write a manifesto which claims these values, and namely it is ecology, gender equality, anti-fascism, anti-capitalism, non-hierarchy, and egalitarian model of social organization. And we are also following principles which are coined in the Codex of Feminist Institution. Fourth point is interdisciplinary art institution. That means that even though we are an art institution, we do not think that art should operate isolated from other fields. So we always try to connect all the art events with other fields and other disciplines. And we have a series of events on a monthly basis dedicated to mental health, science and technology, ecology, history, politics, and so on. And lastly, it is a politically engaged art institution. That means that we are not affiliated with any particular political institution or political party, but we are politically engaged in the sense that we want to shape the political realm we are part of, and we want to shape it according to our manifested ideas.
Now we would like to demonstrate how we practically apply these principles into informal education at one of our festivals, Feminist Festival Artlife. As we established this festival 3 years ago, we were awarded that it's quite a risky project and that feminist issues might be controversial in the context of a small town. That's why we had to proceed very carefully and step by step. These are aspects that we considered in this festival and that we also apply on almost every event that we organize. First point, topics and hosts. The first edition of Artlife Festival didn't have its topic because we meant it as an introduction to feminism. That's why we were very careful in selecting topics and hosts. When we opened, for example, topic of the Istanbul Convention, which is still the topic which divides society in Slovakia, we invited theologian Ondrej Prostredník, who is a moral authority for many Christians. So we were able to bring this topic also to people who could have ignored this discussion. We are also careful to invite not only people who speak about topic from academic perspective, but also activists, journalists, artists who deal with problems actively and practically. In the beginning, we also expected some stereotypical judgments. For example, festival, that Artwife is festival for women who hate men. For that reason, we regularly invite men to participate at the festival. We also dedicated one discussion specifically to the men's perception of feminism, called White Heterosexual Men in Danger. Now, when the basics of feminism were explained, we could afford to dedicate the next 2 editions of the festival to more specific issues, body and work. Second point is language. We do realize that topics we introduce are not just controversial, but demanding at the same time. We have to remind us really often that we are not academia, and our priority should be address and communicate topics really clearly. Therefore, we often stress the simplicity of the language when we communicate about the lectures and discussions with our hosts. We really dedicate a lot of time to it. For instance, when we had a series of discussions in collaboration with Slovak feminist collectives, I even traveled to meet them and discuss the descriptions and content. We also spend a lot of time inventing the titles of the lectures and discussions. Third point, art helps. As we mentioned before, art offers a different experience, therefore is a perfect tool in communicating complex ideas or issues. For instance, when we address the topic of gender-based violence, we combine that with the performance forced beauty from collective teeth. Fourth point, activism as a learning process. It's not only this 4-day-long festival where informal education takes place. It's a part of the overall annual dramaturgy. For us, it's especially important to step out of our venue to the public space. It helps us to attract also people beyond our stable audience. It allows different type of education when we give people opportunity to express themselves. According to feminism, we took part in international protest movement, We Won't Be Silent, for women's reproductive rights. Again, we were aware of our context, so our plan wasn't to organize a massive demonstration. Instead, we created a more intimate space for our local people. Beforehand, we asked women of different age and profession about their experiences with oppression in everyday life. During the protest, women read this text out loud. Last but not least point is work with youth. Our priority target group are young people. Also, at such a specific event as Artwife is the important part of lineup dedicated to them. We believe that in this crucial age, people are able to change their attitudes and after that, actively contribute to change society. We not only organize specific lectures for them, but we also encourage them to organize themselves, for example, in Fridays for Future movement and anti-fascist demonstration.
Yeah. So in this relation to our audience, the process of mutual learning is very important because we do not consider ourselves as kind of messiahs of the knowledge. So we always discuss on a daily basis everything we do. We question every little thing that goes out on public. We have arguments for others, and we always reshape and change every event, every content that goes out. And here in this process, the crucial thing is how our audience understand the content we offer them, and their understanding can tell us better the way how we should communicate these issues. And for instance, we had this protest for reproductive rights, and we had a banner stating end to patriarchy and end to capitalism. And after the protest, the banner was questioned, and the question was raised that how come capitalism is connected to patriarchy. And even though when we did this banner, we thought that it is well known that capitalism as a process or like a system of oppression is connected to patriarchy and determines it, we realized that it is not so common for our audience. So we have to firstly explain what capitalism is, what patriarchy is, and how connected they are, and then we can do this kind of banners. And yeah, that's the end of our presentation. You can make your donations on these addresses. And thank you. If you have any questions or anything, this is the moment.
Thank you, Robo and Janka, for your beautiful presentation. We get few questions for you, so I will read you one by one. The first one is, how do you attract younger audience?
How do we attract the younger audience? Well, it is primarily by the specificity of the events that we dedicate workshops specifically for younger audience, or we have lectures which are for younger audience, or we cooperate with schools. Like there are 2 high schools. Here we are. There are 2, no, even more, like 4 high schools in Litovský Mikuláš. So we cooperate directly with them, and we make specific events in cooperation with them. So then the lecturer from the high school calls all its pupils to come here, and we all collaborate together.
Thank you. Now the second question is, what do you think, what role should Culture Center take in post-COVID age? Should they evolve to some other way of functioning?
Well, yeah, I would say so. I mean, there were examples of many cultural centers who turned into these places where those face masks were being manufactured, and like if a cultural center can recognize what kind of like new new situations that must be addressed emerge, we should address them. Like I don't know, for instance, we decided to address like elderly people because we thought that it's like the most threatened group of people in the first stages of COVID. But now I think I lack an imagination about some kind of post-COVID age. So I don't know like what the situation will be. So I cannot tell like how cultural centers should behave afterwards.
Maybe pandemic is also a big opportunity for solidarity, even though it brought a lot of depression and a lot of bad things. I think it's the positive thing is the idea that we should maybe connect more and be solidary more with each other, and also in the networking between culture centers, for example.
Thank you very much, Janka. There is one question more for you. Do you feel a backlash from your activities in a smaller city?
Like there are less of them?
One more time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel a backlash from your activities in a smaller city?
Maybe we don't understand backlash.
Backlash, I think in Slovak it's vôľa.
I mean, I wouldn't say so. I mean, if we count all, like every single member of the audience and compare it with the audience from other centers, I wouldn't say there is such a big difference. So maybe it's that I don't know. When I started working here, I sometimes felt like I didn't feel motivated because of the few people coming for the events. But then I realized that even though when I lived in a different town, there were also like very few people visiting the events. So I realized that it's not the problem of the cities; it's a larger problem of like people's interest in cultural and art events, and we should kind of like try to reshape them so they are more attractive, but at the same time we do not resignate on the mission we kind of envisioned.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And there is one more for you. So what is your expectation when you organize your activism activities, taking into account you are based in a small city?
Also, like when we did the first protest or the first demonstration, we felt small. We felt that there is no one like joining the protest. But then gradually we realized that there are like these hubs or collectives of active people, and we've gotten like very positive feedback from these groups, for instance, from feminist or environmental organization, not only from Slovakia but also from Poland, from Czech Republic. So then we realized that we are in this struggle networked together, but we don't see each other. We know about each other. We know that there is a protest ongoing in Poland, the protest ongoing in Czech Republic, and we can send each other positive feedback. And this is the way maybe how activism is going on now, that there are no large demonstrations as they were in 1960s, for instance. So yeah, this is the positive thing.
Thank you so much. And the last question for you. Oh, there is one more, but maybe this will be the last one. And if you have some more, you can meet Janka and Robo in the breakout session after the last speech again. So you have a possibility to ask them your questions. So now the last one will be, why do you think politics should be part of culture center or art?
Well, they are inherently connected. I mean, and they determine each other. I mean, art functions within a political sphere, within the political decisions. I mean, like, take, for instance, like your Ministry of Culture, like from whatever country you are, and think of the way how the Ministry of Culture shapes the state of art and culture in your country. So this is the thing this is like the most visible thing that you can react on. And then there are like larger processes ongoing that have impact on art and culture. And I think that art has been connected to politics like ages, like, I don't know, painters in Renaissance were making paintings for their donators or kings, or I don't know. So I think it's an illusion that art is not political.
Thank you very much. As I remind before, you can meet again Janka and Robo in a breakout session after the last speech. And now I would like to send you best greetings to Liptovský Mikuláš and switch to the next speaker. And the next theme which we have on our plan is TEH research on culture center business models, which will be presented by Hanna Olson and Natalia Pierszawka. Hanna, we have already heard today. She works at Trans Europe Hall, where she is a project manager of International Resource Office and project manager and project researcher for Space of Transformation in Arts Education. And Natalia, she is currently doing European Solidarity Corps at Trans Europe Health, and we are going to hear their speech about business models. Maybe a few words about Trans Europe Halls. Trans Europe Halls is one of the oldest and most dynamic culture network in Europe, currently with 127 members in 36 different countries across Europe, from Spain to Ukraine. So one more time, I remind you to ask the questions and write them in a Slido. I will ask our speakers at the end of their presentation. And now, Hanna and Natalia, the space is yours. We are looking forward to your presentation.
Hi, everyone. I will share the screen so everybody can see the presentation. So, it's not really perfect. Oh, no, it's like that. Can we hide this somehow? Because
maybe try to share it again.
Okay, because last time it was the same.
Exactly. Yes, there we go.
This time it works. Okay, so our presentation has two parts. The first part will be presented by me, the theoretical background of the business models in the cultural settings. And the second part will be presented by Hanna, and it's more practical part. So let's dig into it, because we don't have much time. So basically, there are different definitions of business models, and we will be using the one visible over. We'll be using the one focused on the values. So basically, to us, the business models are the combination of three types of values. The first is the value creation. So it is basically what we are proposing, what we are creating, what we believe is something valuable, what we are offering to others. There's the value delivery, which is how it is being presented and given to others, how we are doing that, and the value capture. So it's basically how we are getting paid and how we are getting money. And it is very important to mention at this stage that, of course, for non-governmental organizations and nonprofits, that's definitely way different than for anyone else, because as we all know, the value capture is a bit more complicated. Then there are four basic components of the business models. And of course, there's like the value proposition. So that is what we plan to give to the community, the society, and why our target group pays, uses, participates in our activities. There are the stakeholders who could be understood as the staff and volunteers, artists, audiences, funders, donors, anyone, any target groups involved in our organization. And then there's the infrastructure. So this
I think Natalia lost connection here. I hope we will have her back very shortly. So we'll give it a few seconds to see if she will get back.
Basically, that's all the finances. And here it's quite important to mention again that to
Natalia, sorry, I think we lost you for a few seconds. So if you can,
internet.
Yeah. So if you will go back a little bit, just a few seconds. And,
okay, to
so
the revenue model.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so lastly, the last basic component of the business model is the revenue model, which is basically all the finances. So how are we financing things? What are the costs and so on? And here it's very important to mention that business models to us are not the same thing as the revenue model. The revenue model is some sort of like a business plan. That's like basically putting the business model in action. So that's very important for us in general and will be visible in this presentation. Moving on, there's quite important thing also regarding the culture sector, meaning that it's not just one-sided business model. It's not just like us and the customer or us and the audience or us, the participants. It's actually, the culture sector has the so-called customer unit. And that basically means that we have the funders or buyers. So the people who are funding us. So they can be public or private. And this is the one group, and the second group is the beneficiaries. So the people who are receiving.
I think we lost Natalia again here. Hopefully she will be back again in a few seconds.
People who are funding and paying.
Sorry, Natalia, we lost you a little bit again.
We knew it would happen. Where should I return back? I cannot hear you, Hannah.
So you can start from the start of this slide. So
the start of the slide, okay.
Yeah. We heard a few first seconds, but
okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, that's my internet. Well, okay, so then again, the culture sector is multi-sided, meaning that the business models within the culture sector are not, it's just not one-way traffic, meaning like we are not here as an organization and we have somebody that we are providing something for, but we are dependent on two types of groups, meaning we have funders or buyers, and these are public, either public or private funding organizations. So the ones who give us money, and there are beneficiaries that this is the group of people who are receiving our services. That it could be art education programs, galleries, theater, you name it. And oftentimes that group doesn't pay or pays partially. And what is quite complicated at times in here is the fact that the funders and the beneficiaries can have different wants and needs. They can be aligned, of course, or they might differ. There are big 5 questions that every organization, every social rooted organization should be asking themselves. And even though they look easy, oftentimes it's quite hard to answer them. So that would mean that what is our mission? Who is our customer or audience or participant? And what do they value? What are our results? How do we measure them? And how are we planning stuff? How are we planning to achieve certain goals? And the thing in here is that oftentimes this is a guessing game, and many times a lot of organizations do not understand what actually is happening here. So that would mean that it is important, even if something is working and we are very sure about that, to be able to trace it back and always understand what is going on. Following that, there are 5 elements of the effective plans that the organization can engage in. And the first one is the abandonment. And that basically means like what does not work right now. And if we were not committed to this today, what would we even like go into it? So that would be one. Another is the concentration, meaning what works right now. So can we get even a higher standard of what we are producing at a certain moment, what we are doing? The third one is the innovation. So it's focusing on the future. So let's find out what this requires, what the participants and audiences value, how can we make a difference in the society. And the fourth part is focus on commitment. So if we engage in either of those things, we have to be committed, we have to make time for those things, otherwise they are not successful. And the last part, which is very important, is that we recognize what we don't know, so we constantly analyze. Speaking of innovation, there for the art and culture centers, there are five main areas of innovation when the culture centers can engage in. And that would mean that the first one is art form development. So that would mean that exploring new ideas, expressions, technologies, forms, or so that are advanced and adapted to artists and audiences. So that would be the first area that the innovation can take place. The second one would be focusing on audiences. So trying to connect to them, understand them. And it's often with the art and education organizations that's basically marketing plus educational programs. Then the distribution, which is quite visible at this very moment because it's basically exploring new channels and marketplaces. So how do we show, like that would, for example, be social media on right now YouTube or Zoom. Then another one, which is very interesting, is the value creation. So it's focused on developing and improving indicators and models for measuring the value and impact of the activities that the organization is engaging in. So that would, for example, even apply to the business models that we are having at the moment. Like maybe we have to redesign them so they match better to the culture sector, or maybe we have to develop completely new indicators for measuring whether our activities are impactful or not. And the last part is, as we are speaking right now, is the business models. So basically rethinking the way organization is operating as a whole. And what is, like, last and not least, the part and like what we
Okay, hopefully Natalia will get back to us soon again.
with our mission, so it should always be aligned.
Sorry, Natalia, it was the third time. From last but not least. So.
Okay, it was way better in the morning. So the self-assessment, yes. So I have to repeat that part, right? Yes. Okay. So the self-assessment is basically so focus on the fact that wherever you are within your organization, whether you have a business plan or not, whether you plan your goals, objectives, or deciding to accept certain grant or not, you should always be able to come back to your mission. So it's ever changing, like always flexible process. The business models should always be able to be flexible and adaptable. They are not a business, like they are not a blueprint of a building or whatever. So they should always be ever changing, but always going back to what you believe in, what you value. From our side, there's available, we have available the designed by our colleague, by Jose Rodriguez, the business model canvas designed especially for arts and cultural organizations, which focus on 4 main questions, 4 main parts. So why are we doing certain things? With whom are we doing it? What is our work? And how are we getting money for it? So our revenue model. And that's the end of the part for the theoretical and the part of losing internet. And now I'm handing this to Hannah.
Thank you so much, Natalia. So we have been reaching out to our partners in the Spotting project to hear a little bit about practical examples. And the important thing to remember is that you cannot copy one example and put it into your own organization. That applies to any example, because it needs to come from your own values, your own vision, and your own mission. Of course, you can get inspired, but you cannot copy. So that's a very important thing. Maybe next slide, please, Natalia. So Röda Sten Konsthall, they adjusted their program, of course, to COVID. So what they're doing is that they are offering weekend workshops on different teams targeted to parents and children. And it's based on an ongoing exhibition that they have. So you can, together with your mom and dad at home, you can get inspired to create. And this, of course, is also a way of building audiences and visibility. So it's a way also to reach persons that cannot come to Röda Sten themselves. Maybe lives in another part of the country or so forth. Next slide, please, Natalia. Yes, and now we go to Vienna in Austria and Brunnenpassage. They decided, because they have, of course, a big space that they could not use as they usually do because of the COVID situation. So they decided to offer the space for a local artist for residencies. And the project is called The Artists Are Present. So by this, it's of course a perfect way to network, to extend your network and build alliances with local artists, and also to build visibility, because this is shown on different social media channels. Next slide. Yes, from Luxembourg and Kulturfabrik. They usually do a map of the urban arts, and this time they have decided to use something called Use It, and made the young people in Esch decide and work on this map and decide what should be on this map. Next slide, please. Yes, for Associazione Oltre in Italy, they have been running 2 campaigns. So they collaborated with the local artists and did some live shows and small videos in order to gain money to keep the space. And so it was a donation-based event. They also did lotteries. They have bike repair workshops. So bikes were some of the prizes that you could get from buying these lotteries. And it was mainly also to support a specific event, which was the parade of the whale. Next slide, please, Natalia. And then we are traveling to France and Le Plus Petit Cirque du Monde. So during COVID, they have also been working with looking into the organization and rethinking the structure. And an important thing also is that they have a structure where they have different sources of funding that they base their activities on, which means that if one of these sources are cut or severely reduced, it will still be possible for the activities to go on and for the center to keep working. Next slide, please, Natalia. And for Beat Carnival, now we are traveling to Northern Ireland and Belfast. So it's also about how to organize yourself. Beat Carnival, they have two parts of the organization. One is a charity, and the other one is a social enterprise company. And of course, in both of these cases, it's a lot of work, and it also is dependent on, yes, surrounding structures that you need to adapt to. And during COVID, they also made some activities in neighborhoods that they would like to reach more. So they took the opportunity to do that in a small scale and also in a COVID-friendly way. So they have also started a network with other organizations that work with Carnival to discuss the current situation and the public policy and so forth to respond to that. So next slide, please, Natalia. And for Stanica, which is not our last example because they will present themselves tomorrow. So stay tuned. And by that, I think we will give the floor back to Nada. I think we're out of time, but maybe there is a question or so.
Thank you, Hannah and Natalia, for your presentation. It was really interesting. And I have a few questions here for you, but maybe I will ask one or two, and the others you can also ask them in the next breakout session. So the first question is, on what frequency a culture center should rethink its business models? Every month, every year, every 5 years? What do you think?
I think, I don't know if you want to answer, Natalia. I can start and you can fill up. I think it's a constant process according to that wheel that we showed in the last slide of Natalia's presentation. So revising your business model is nothing that maybe you do on a regular basis, but it's a constant process, and you are always at one point in this loop.
Yeah, I also think that of course there are better and worse times for doing so. One of the worst times to actually revisit your business model is in the crisis when you are trying to survive. But I mean, like right now, it's probably people are forced to do so. I think it is important. There's no like a frequency, like a fixed frequency of like doing that every month for 3 months or so. It's basically measuring what you know and what you don't know, revisiting your business model, being like, okay, does it match what we are actually doing? Can we do it better and such? So it's focused also on the innovation in a way.
Thank you. And now the second question, how do you understand innovation in art and culture?
Yes, so it is quite a difficult question, to be honest, because so there are different types of innovation, of course. So you can innovate what you already have. So innovate your products, your services and such. You can disrupt everything and just like try to influence the market so everything is changing and moving. So introduce a new way of doing such stuff. So introducing a new way of looking at culture, introducing a new way of showing the culture, interacting with the culture, and then that also could influence the whole sector. So there are, of course, different ways of innovating. And I think with the culture sector, it would be quite similar to any other organization. For example, culture sector can also innovate inside. So also looking at like the structure of working. We have been talking to one of the organizations and they said that, for example, the COVID times help them look into their structure and be less hierarchical and like seeing that it kind of works for them. So I think that culture sector has for example, more opportunities to do that. For example, to be less focused on hierarchy, because the culture and the alternative thinking is allowing that. So I would answer it that way, I guess.
Thank you. And the last one in this session would be, what makes you want to work in a cultural center? It is a demanding job?
Hannah?
Yes, it's a hard question for us, I would believe, because we, neither Natalia or I, are actually working in a cultural center, but I have been working with the independent cultural field before in an organization, and for me, I mean, it is about the values, absolutely, but you also, I mean, you need to eat, you need to have a place to live, so you also need to, make money and make money out of your values in order to support yourself, and that should be possible. I think with different kinds of support. So I think it's necessary, absolutely.
Thank you very much, Hannah and Natalia, for your interesting presentation. And I also remind other participants that they can ask Hannah and Natalia and other speakers in breakout sessions. You can still choose your speakers and write you yourself in a Padlet. And I would like also invite the other participants which are watching us on a YouTube stream or Facebook, that we would like to invite them to our concert, which shall start at 7 p.m. and we can see and hear concert of Eric Panci. So you are invited. And I remind our internal participants that we shall meet at 4:20 in a breakout session rooms with the speakers which have already heard today, and you can discuss with them interesting topics which they were speaking about, and you can ask them your questions and discuss together and share this afternoon. So enjoy the break and see you at 4:20, and with the others we can see at 7 in the concert.